Hey, what's up? All right, good morning. This is Chris with Tech Teacher Support, and today we are going to build an app. All right. I've been doing a lot of Switch coding lately. I've been doing the Everyone Can Code. I've been doing all the high school and into the sort of upper level computer science of Swift. But what I loved the most was actually making apps that I could put right on my iPhone or iPad and see them work. And then if there were bugs, I could fix those and go back and forth. And so what I found to be the most fun of making apps over the past month or so, I wanted to take just that part and teach you how to do it. Because I think, there's a lot of different skills involved in this with not only coding, but some user interface, because we have to design our app, and a lot of tools involved. All right, so we are going to be following along in Apple's book, and we have it right here in front of us, Intro to App Development with Swift. We are specifically going to go to chapter 17, and I'll show you how to get there. But this is a book that you can put, again, right here on your iPad, and you can read along and follow while you're doing it on your computer. Or again, you could have a second laptop or iPhone, so you can read this and code at the same time. That's really important because you're going to be referencing the book back and forth as you write and build the app. So my suggestion is to download this book from Apple Books, and Apple makes it. It's called Intro to App Development with Swift. And again, I'll put that link right here in the description. And before we get too much further, I wanted to show you the app we're going to build. It's always good to see the end result first, so we know kind of what to strive for here. And this is by no means perfect, but again, this is just me learning how to do this, and so I figured we could learn together. All right, so I'm going to pull up my iPad here, and I'm going to hide Apple Books. And all right, you should see in front of you, this is my iPad. All right, so one sitting right here. I have this plugged into my computer via USB-C right here into the side of the laptop. And then I use QuickTime Player to show you and do screen recording. So here's my iPad. And as you can see, I have all my apps set up. If I switch over to the second page, this is where I'm going through the tutorials and building and making apps. And this very last one is called Color Mix. And so I'm going to launch that and show you what that looks like. So let's just do that. Okay, here's Color Mix. And the cool thing about Color Mix is it's an app that has buttons and sliders and actions. So it is interactive. As you touch and click and slide, something is always happening on the screen. So that's why I think it's one of the best apps to start out building, is because not only is it interactive, but it gives you a little room to play with some user interface. And it also is fun to just have on your phone or your iPad when you're done building it, and have other people check it out. And you can show them, hey, I made this, I built this, I think this is pretty cool. And that's my favorite part. Sometimes we do coding and it's just on the computer and you can't show anyone. I like being able to kind of show off your skills. So building this app, it's going to go right onto your phone or your iPad, your iOS device, and then you can launch it and run it and show people. All right. But in order to do that, you're going to have to hook your device up to your computer, and we'll go over all of that. Okay. So again, we are going to make this app right here, and this is called Color Mix. And it's got three main parts. One, it's got this screen up here, right? This, let's see if I can highlight it. Ooh, I can. So one, we have this sort of screen. This is the color that's going to change as we then mix with the buttons and the sliders. So just three main user interface objects happening here. And the cool thing is as you click the buttons, it turns off the colors, and then you can use the slider to get the actual perfect color you want. So it's kind of fun to try to get, for example, the teal color that we use at Tech Teacher Support. I guess that would be mostly blue. Maybe get rid of this red, add in some green. I mean, that's getting pretty close, right? It sort of matches. So I think this is again, this is chapter 17, so it's skipping halfway through the intro to app development. But I totally think this is a app that we can build together, step by step. If you've never built an app before, I have confidence in you that this is something we can do. You can do this, and if you want to take this further, this book is awesome. There are a lot of apps that you build and teaches you different skills if you want to really get into app development. This is also something you can do with your students. There is a teacher version of this, so it has curriculum and talking points, code review, things like that built in, so you could run this as an actual class. Okay, so we have to do a few things to get our tools ready to build this app. And I've kind of listed them over here on the side, so let's go through. I'm going to turn this color picker all the way off, and we're going to exit this back to the iPad. We're actually going to hide this iPad for a second. Okay. So if you want to build an app for iOS, which is iPhones, iPads, iPod Touch, and for Macintosh computers, you need to use an app called Xcode. All right. Now, if you're building an Android app or an app for Windows, there's different software to do that, depending on what you're trying to build for. But let's just all assume we are building an app for our iPhone. All right. And we're going to use what's called Xcode. And Xcode is a free app made by Apple that makes other apps, which is really cool. And we're going to be spending most, if not all of our time in Xcode, and then shooting our project over to our iPad every so often and making sure it works. All right. And this is called the sort of development environment. So this is where you're going to develop your app, the graphics, the sounds, the code, all of that. So where do you find Xcode? Xcode is free, and it's on the App Store. And so if you follow my mouse here, I'm going to go to the App Store right now. And we're going to head up here, and we're going to go down to App Store. All right. You can also launch this right from your Applications folder. And this will pull up the Apple App Store, which is full of all the apps that you can buy and purchase and download. We are going to go up here to the search bar, and we are going to type in Xcode. All right. Here we go. Now, of course, as you've probably seen on every tutorial, this is already downloaded on my computer. It is a huge app. So I'm going to click on this for you. This gives you a bunch of information about it. It looks incredibly overwhelming. I mean, literally every app on your phone was built in this, so it can get very complicated, very complex, but I'm going to try to make it easy for you. That's the whole point of my series, is taking something that seems complicated and overwhelming and helping you through it, because little do you know you have the ability to do it. It's just some of us are better and more intuitive at things than others, so that's okay. We're going to figure this out. This is maybe where you want to pause this video, because when we go to download Xcode, it is maybe 4 or 5 gigabytes, right? So it's going to take, depending on your internet connection, an hour or 2 or more to download to your computer. Not only that, but when you then run it for the first time, it's going to ask you to download some additional modules, I guess you could call them. So the whole total installation of Xcode can take upwards of an hour or 2. So this may be where you want to pause the video, hit download on Xcode, and then go do some work in the yard or get some reading done, whatever you may want to do while you're waiting for that to download. We have kind of fast forwarded through that point. It's already on our machine. We've been using it for years. So I always have the most recent up-to-date version. This is Xcode 11. And you may see a lot of tutorials on YouTube over the years that have Xcode 8, 9, 10. It's hard to keep up because Apple, it makes improvements constantly. And so we are using Xcode 11. And actually what I want to do is put that up here on the little thing that we're doing and make sure to let people know that this is Xcode 11. Because it's going to look a little different than 10, different than 9, different than 8. So I am going to download Xcode. Go ahead and do that. And I'm going to get out of the App Store. All right, the other piece of important tools that we need is the actual book itself. And I'm going to pull this up here. This is called Intro to App Development with Swift. And you get it by going to the book store. So on your Mac, there's an app called Books. It used to be called iBooks. And when you click on that, that is sort of the store to browse and purchase works of literary fiction, nonfiction, tutorials like this. All right. So I'm going to click on Books. And I've already kind of taken us right to the page, but I can go backwards a little bit. This is the book you want to look for. This is called Intro to App Development with Swift. And you can see already here, it is on Xcode 10. So this is already a year behind. It's okay because a ton hasn't changed from 10 to 11. Just improvements have been made. Things run quicker, better, faster. So this is still going to work just fine. I haven't run into any snags using Xcode 11 with this book. Okay. I've already downloaded it, but this button for you right here should say download or get. It is a free book. The cool thing is this is part of a series. So if you enjoy this book and you get really far, you can actually go into, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to show you this really quick. You can actually go much deeper into Swift, obviously. We're going to pull up Apple Education here. And here is all of Apple Education tutorials books. Lots of creativity. Everyone Can Code. iPad starter guides. GarageBand. A ton of free stuff. And I use this all the time. This is really good. It is produced really well and is very, very knowledgeable about all of these things. So, as you can see, you can keep going up in the coding. It starts down here with sort of kindergarten level, elementary level, and goes all the way up to college. So I think is the easiest to begin with because you're actually building apps. A lot of the other courses, you do a lot of you do playgrounds and you do some sort of code chunks here and there, but I think when I work with students, it works best if there's an app actually built that they can move and switch and show to people. That gives it a little more buy-in to the education if there's a sort of tangible thing happening and not just on the screen. So, okay, we are going to get this book, Intro to App Development with Swift. And again, I'll put that link in the description. And we are going to now hide iBooks. Okay, so we got number 1. We downloaded Xcode 11. Number 2 is we got our Intro to App Development with Swift. And now number 3, in order to make this happen where you do it on your device, you're going to need to plug your device into your computer because Xcode and your device are going to need to talk to each other. Now you can do this wirelessly. That's a whole nother setup process, but I find it easier because it also charges the iPad to just plug it right in. So I've connected a cable from the Lightning connector over here to USB-C, and you'll see when I do some work in Xcode and I want to test it out, I can just shoot it right over here to the iPad and see how it actually would work if someone were using it on the iPad. You're going to see that Xcode has a simulator that you can kind of run on your computer, but it's not the same. I always find it way better when students can run it on their personal device. So, number 3 is you're going to want to hook up your iPhone or iPad. You're also going to want to make sure that it is up to date. It is currently iOS 13. Here in probably 3 or 4 months, it'll be iOS 14. So some of this may change, but that's okay. Just make sure your iPhone or iPad is up to date. In fact, that goes for everything. Make sure your Mac is up to date. Make sure Xcode is up to date. Make sure your devices are up to date. That's just standard issue, especially for this coding stuff, is because everything is sort of updating and progressing, and if you're using older versions, it may get in the way of newer stuff. To just gloss over that really quickly, make sure everything is up to date. Number 4, this is very important, and I use this a lot. This is growth mindset. You may get stuck, you may get frustrated, you may get really mad at yourself that things aren't working, but that's okay. stand up, take a breath, walk away, come back. You've got this. You just need to tell yourself that everyone has gone through this. Millions of people have tried coding an app and ran into these same problems. What separates the people who build an app versus don't is pushing through that and telling yourself that you can do this. You may need some help. You may need some support. You may need to reach out, but that's okay. That's why we're here. That's why there's tons of resources on the internet for you, and we're going to help you do that. But you have to always keep that growth mindset that you are going to keep growing and keep learning, and every failure is actually a learning experience. Super important. All right?
My apologies.
Oh, my watch thought I was saying something. So I'm going to pause right here for a second and just go back through. So make sure you get Xcode. Make sure you get the book, Intro to App Development with Swift. Make sure you get the cables and everything up to date and connect your device to your Mac. Make sure you're coming into this with the idea that you're going to figure this out. You may need some help, but that's okay. We all do, right? And then what we're going to do is just go right to chapter 17. So if that seems crazy to just skip over the first 16 chapters, pause this video, go through the first 16 chapters if you want, because you're going to learn a bunch, and then you can be right here with us. But I promise you that if you've never built an app before, you can follow this video and we're going to figure this out. So here's what we're going to start with. We're going to open the book to chapter 17. All right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop over here. I think this is probably a better view. It's a much bigger screen. And I'm going to go and launch the Books app. And again, you can find this in your Applications folder. You can find this down in your dock if that's where you use it. I'm going to launch Books. And of course, it took me right to the store. Let's get out of the store. I'm actually going to go up here to my library, all right? Because now that we already own the book, it's in our library. And it's also in the library on our iPad and our iPhone. If you have that all synced up, it's really cool. So that way, I do that a lot. I'll start reading it on my Mac, and then I'll be in the backyard, and I'll have it on my iPad, and I'll pick up where I left off. So that is the really nice feature of Books. I'm going to click on Library here. And these are all the books that I've downloaded and been using. I'm going to find Intro to App Development with Swift. I'm going to open that up. And you can do that by double clicking. Now, of course, I've already here at chapter 17, but if you're not, I'm going to show you how to get there. If you move your mouse up a little bit, you see these little icons appear at the top of the screen. And I wish they had words to say, but if you hover over them, it'll tell you. This is notes. So if you want to highlight or take notes, you can do that. This is the table of contents. That's where we're going to go. And this will actually bring you all the way back to your library. I've hit that way too many times, and trust me, you don't probably ever want to hit that unless you're completely done. So I'm going to show the table of contents here. All right. And as you can see, it starts here at lesson 1, basics, takes you through learning a bunch of vocab and terminology, and we're going to find ourselves right down here at lesson 17, actions and outlets. All right, so let's click on that, and it should take us right to the first page here. Perfect. All right, and it kind of gives you an overview, so we'll look at this on the screen here. Right here it says what you'll build, and that's the Color Picker app. So we saw that a little bit ago. What you'll learn, and these are some of the big sort of overarching ideas of the skills that you're going to learn here. And this is why I think this is the best app to start with. How to connect your app's interface to your code. So what that means is when you're clicking buttons and sliding things, your code is actually reacting to that. That's really important because every app on your phone reacts to user input, right? When I click a button, when I slide a thing, when I scroll up on Instagram, when I literally do anything on my phone, it's interpreting my actions and swipes and running code. Okay? So again, on our color picker, when I turn a color on or off with a button, there's got to be code that says when that button is clicked, things turn on or off. So we'll go through that. Number 2 here, how to change your app's display from Swift code. So again, you're going to learn how to do backgrounds. You're going to learn how to do image views. You're essentially going to learn how your code can then talk back to your app and make things happen. So you switch a button and talk to your code, then your code says the button has been switched and sends back an image color. So those are actions and outlets. Those are 2 really big themes when it comes to apps, because that's how the user interface functions. You do an action and it reacts by running some code. All right. And then, of course, number 3 here, how to use switches, sliders, and a button. And again, these are super important concepts because as we go to build apps and as you design apps, everything happens around clicking, switching, swiping. So it's important to know how these work. Now, right up here, it says what you'll wonder. How else can you use Interface Builder to lay out UI elements? And I think that's really cool because they're going to show you how to build the app, but there's no reason you can't move the buttons and sliders around and change their size and change their height and width and really make this customized, personalized to you. And I think that's the best part of Apple education stuff is they always build in that creativity, which is my favorite. And then again, it goes over some key vocabulary here. So we're going to learn about actions. What's a CG float, right? We're going to learn about that. Enabled, disabled, outlets, sliders, and switches. And you've probably seen all these things. You just maybe didn't know they were named that, but that's totally fine. By the time we're done with this, you'll have all of this extra knowledge, and hopefully you take it further and I see one of your apps on the App Store. That'd be awesome. So I'm going to go to page 2. All right. We're just going to follow along this book together. The intro sort of tells you what we just went over. Here are the things that your app is going to do, and it's broken up into a few parts. So this video will be broken up into a few parts. We've been here about 20 minutes. I like to keep these manageable. So we'll do part 1, we'll cut it. This afternoon we'll do part 2, we'll cut it. If there's a part 3, I'm not sure. We'll see how far we go, but I want to keep these under, an hour. Let's say 45 minutes, because then that gives you 15 minutes to get up and around before the next hour. So right here it says part 1, we are going to connect some objects in a storyboard. Part 2, we're going to run some code. Anyways, it's kind of giving you an overview of what we're going to do. There is also part 3, 4, 5, and 6. Some of these are much longer than others. Like this one, add sliders, is probably longer than adding the reset button. So we'll see how many of these we can combine into maybe make this a 2 or 3 part series. But I don't want this to string on to like a 3, 4, 5 hour live stream because no one will watch that. So, right. Here we go. Actions and outlets, and we're going to pause here because they're already telling us to get into Xcode, and you maybe have not launched Xcode or it hasn't finished downloading yet. So I'm going to take you over to Xcode and we're going to get that up and running, because right here, step 1, all right, it says create a new Xcode project. Okay, well, in order to do that, we have to make sure Xcode's up and running and installed. So let's switch over. I'm going to go up to books and I'm going to say hide. So we can hide that. And I am going to go down here to Xcode. All right, now again, I keep this on my dock because I use it not maybe every day, but definitely every week. And it's something I use frequently, so I put it down here on my dock. If you don't have it on your dock, it is in your applications folder. So you would want to click on Finder. All right, you're going to get your Finder window here. We're going to go down to Applications. Okay, and then everything in here is alphabetical. So we'll zoop down to the X. And there's Xcode. All right, it is a hammer on top of a blueprint for an app, which is very cool because you're building an app. And this is the 16.8 gigabytes, it says its size is. So this is one of the larger apps on my computer. It is absolutely huge. But it contains all of the sort of software development kits for every device, all of the graphics. It's huge for a reason. So you may still be downloading it. Pause this and then hit play when it's done, because we are going to launch this. And to launch Xcode, you just double click. All right. And here we go. Welcome to Xcode. So let me get away from this really quick. Now, two things. Your screen may be white. I have what's called dark mode on. So it's possible that your welcome to Xcode screen is white, not black. That's okay. You can see right here, it tells us what version we're on of Xcode. We'll just say version 11. You're going to see everything referred to are those big version numbers. Xcode 10, Xcode 11. The 0.4.1 means there's been a number of additional updates to version 11 as bugs get fixed and features get added. So we're on Xcode version 11. All right. I'm going to show you around this screen really quick. Over here on the right-hand side are all of your projects. So these are any apps that you're building, any tutorials you may be building. Like right now, we see Color Mix right up here at the top. That is going to be sort of your recent projects. But then over here, this is where you would start a brand new project. So it literally can be kind of tricky, because these don't look like buttons. These are just text, but these are actually buttons. Tricky. So let's look at our book, because our book is going to tell us exactly what we want to click. And I want to follow and sort of reference the book as we go. I don't want to get too far off base, so you can follow and reference the book as well. So I'm going to Command Tab back over to my book. And again, on your keyboard, that is the Command button. Hold that down and then hit Tab, and that will take you through your different apps. So that's how we're going to switch back and forth. All right. So it says in this part, step 1, highlight that. Create a new Xcode project using the single view application template. Let's do that. So here we are at Xcode, and again, I'm going to kind of zoom up. Right here are your options for new projects. We want to do the one in the middle. Create a new Xcode project. I'm going to click that. Yes, it's a button. Now, when you launch Xcode New Project, Apple says, hey, we can kind of get you started down the path if you let us know what you're making here. And I'll zoom in a little bit to this. So if you're making a game, you would want to click this, because it's going to include a lot of the pieces that video games use, like the sprites and the graphics and sort of the animations and things, right? If you were building an AR app, so you're building an augmented reality museum or direction finding, or an augmented reality sort of furniture thing, whatever that may be, you would want to start with the augmented reality app. So as you can see, as you get more advanced and you have an app idea in your head, you can use these templates to sort of start down the road in that direction. The book told us to do the single view app, and that is going to be the most popular one, the one you will probably do the most when you're doing tutorials, and they've made that the very first one right there. The other thing to watch out for is right up here. This can be really tricky, it's easy to miss, but again, we are building an iOS app. So this is going to run on our iPhone or iPad or iPod Touch. If we were building an app for our watch, you would want to say watchOS. You can also build apps for the Apple TV. And of course, you can build apps for your laptop. And then if you want, you can start building what's called a cross-platform app. So this is an app that not only runs on your Mac, but potentially Windows or Android, right? That's way down the line. We're going to focus here on just a very simple iOS app. Single view application. Make sure you have those checked, and we are going to say next. Let's pull off my thing there. Next. All right. So this is where you got to give your app a name and give a little bit of information about it. Let's see what the book tells us to do before I just start filling this out. Okay, so let's tab over to our book. And here it will. It says name the app color mix and fill in the rest of the details. Okay. So let's look at this again here. Product name, color mix, team, that is me. I'm my own developer. If you worked in an office with a number of other developers, you may have a team. Leave that there. Organization name, that's one of my companies, so that could just be your name as well. This is the tricky part. Language. Swift. Make sure it says Swift. If you are running an older version of Xcode, or you were someone who's built apps back in the day, a lot of them used Objective-C, and you can still build in Objective-C, but we want to focus on Apple's Swift code, so we're going to make sure that is Swift. And then this is a newer feature, but right down here, user interface, you have a couple options now as well. There is a new thing called Swift UI, which is a way to build your app using even more Swift code. But for our sake and for the sake of following along with the book, we want to use the Storyboard interface. And the Storyboard interface is what has been used for the last number of years. So you'll see most of all the tutorials will be based on storyboards. Anything after maybe the last couple months maybe is switching to Swift UI, but we're not there yet, and our book isn't there yet. So make sure this says Storyboard. Don't worry about using core data or these tests. We are going to say next. Okay, now it's saying, this may be a problem because I already have one named color mix. But anyways, now it's asking you where you want to save your project. I tend to be organized in that all of my projects live in a folder called Xcode Projects. I find that easiest to organize. You may want to put it on your desktop or in your documents folder, whatever that may be. You're going to want to tell your computer where you want to save that. And don't worry about source control. That is something that you wouldn't need unless you were working with collaborators or inviting other people to work on your code. So this is just for us. We do not need to check that button. I'm going to say create. And see, it says color mix already exists. Do you want to replace it? I do not. So I'm going to call mine color mix do 2. And that way color mix 2 won't overwrite my original color mix. Next. I want to save it right here. Create. Okay, boom, lots of info. That can be a little overwhelming. It just throws you right into Xcode, which is one of the more advanced apps I've ever used. So there are tutorials that will take you through every button and every part of Xcode. As you can see, at any moment, there are about 150 different things you could click on. So to introduce a student to this, or a teacher, or someone who's never done it, this can kind of wash over you and be a little bit intimidating. But don't let it, because we're going to find out that this is, the more you use it, the more it will make sense, obviously, but it's laid out in a way that will make sense to you. And there's a reason for all of these buttons and things to click on, because they're all very important. So it sure beats hiding all of these things behind something that is even more difficult to get to. So long story short, this is Xcode. And I'm going to make this kind of fill up my whole screen here. And let's pause there for a second, because I want to go back to our book before we go any further, and I'll show you Xcode. But what it's telling us is step 3, using the project navigator, open main.storyboard. Okay, And then right away, it's telling us to go into the object library. So if you've never used the project navigator or the object library, you were like, what? Where would, it would be really tricky. So let's check this out. Using the project navigator, open main.storyboard. All right, here we go. So this is Xcode. And as you can see, things are kind of broken up into sort of vertical panes here. Right? This window itself has 1, 2, 3, 4 panes. All right. Yours may not exactly look like this, depending on, again, what windows you have turned on or off. You can find yourself looking at a screen that is completely different from mine, and it can be really tricky. Up here in the corner, you're going to see this is the ability to turn these panes on or off. And so right away, this is one of the first things I show students, because it can get tricky if that pane over there is missing. How do you get that back, right? So you want to make sure that your panes up here, these 3, are turned on. And if you hover over them, they'll tell you a little bit about them. So let's zoom in up here. This one is the navigator, and you can see that is on the left-hand side. This one is the debug area. So if your code or app has problems or bugs, it'll help you find those and fix them. And then this is the pane that shows off the inspectors, it's called. So let's look at this real quick. The inspectors are the ones on this side. The navigator are the ones on that side. And the debug area is the one down here. It's not going to let you turn off this middle pane because this is where all your work is being done. So sometimes, though, people kind of want to clear the screen of all of the extra stuff and just focus. And you can do that by turning your panes on or off. All right. You can also go up here to Window. I will not do that. Let's not go down that road. Okay. Let me know in the comments or on Twitter @TechTeacherSup if you are not step 1, if things look really weird. Maybe take a screenshot. Let me know. I'll help you get to this. But what we want to do is go to what's called the Project Navigator. So let's real quick reference our book again. It says, using the Project Navigator, open main.storyboard. Okay. So we know the navigator is over here on the left. That's the one, make sure it's turned on, right? And so over here on the left, let me zoom in for you. Here's what's happening. This is your app, Color Mix 2. And inside of your app is a folder that contains a number of files. And like we saw a little bit ago, because we chose Single View Application as a template, it went ahead and created a bunch of the files we needed for us. We didn't have to make any of these. They were there when we started, which is awesome. You'll notice that inside of these files, they all have names. So again, app delegate, scene delegate, view controller, main.storyboard, right? These are going to be different files that we work on in your app. Sometimes you add files to this. If there are graphics or sounds that you need to add to your app, this is where all of them live. All right. What the book is telling us is that it wants us to click on main.storyboard. So I'm going to do that. And this is really cool because what you should see in front of you is an iPhone screen, right? So let's go over this really quick. This iPhone screen should represent the iPhone that you're using. So you can make it on the computer and see what it looks like over here. If you were making an app that works with every device out there, you're going to want to make sure you test your app on different screens, right? But what I want you to do is focus on just making this look like your phone. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do that. So we are in the main.storyboard, and we're looking at sort of our canvas where we're going to build the sort of interface and the buttons and sliders. And if we look down here, it says view as an iPhone 11. So right here on our screen is an iPhone 11. For me, for example, I use an iPhone XS Max. So I prefer to make my screen on here look like my iPhone XS Max. So I'm going to say view as down here. And there is almost every device that Apple makes and every different screen size. As you start developing apps, you'll notice right away that it not only needs to work on this giant iPad, but also on the smallest iPhone, right? And so you're going to work a lot on making sure your graphics look just as good on a phone as they do on an iPad. But for the sake of testing today, I always like to make sure that the device I'm testing on is the one I'm building on. It helps keep things looking the same. So you can go through here and you can find your phone. For example, right, there's an iPhone 8 if that's what you're developing on. These are all the iPads up here. For the sake of consistency, let's show you what an iPad would look like on the screen. So this is an iPad Pro. So let's find iPad Pro 12.9. That's the one. So I'm going to click on that. All right. And boom, fills up my whole screen. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. All right. There's my iPad screen. And what I want to do, since we are orientating it like this, let's orientate it like that on our screen. All right, I'm going to zoom up a little bit here. So what we did is we just made sure that when we're making our app, the screen we're building on looks exactly like the screen that we're going to be testing on. It's really hard to build an iPad app and then test it on your iPhone, right? It's also hard to build an iPhone app and test it on your iPad because things may not look exactly right, and that can be a bit frustrating. So without getting into auto layout and constraints and stacks, I can show you eventually how to make your app look the same on every device. But for today, let's just make sure that we're building on the same device you're using. So take a second again to go down here to the view as and make sure that you are viewing and building on the same device that you have connected, whether that be an iPhone or an iPad. All right? Cool. So again, we have the iPad Pro 12.9 inch here. We have it orientated in landscape, not portrait. So that's how we will build it. Wow, that was a lot. Congratulations, you've made it really far. This is a lot of information. Let's go back here to this. Just an overview, because we're getting close to 45 minutes and this is a good place to stop. I will be back with part 2 later today on a live stream, and we will start building the first chunks of this app. But this setup part can be kind of a lot of work. So congratulate yourself for getting this far. There's a lot of tools, a lot of vocab, a lot of knowledge we just gained. Your neurons are building out. So let's go over real quick what we did, and then I will get you out of here on that, and I'll see you later. So we're going to build our first app, and our first app is our color mix app. And so let me put that up on the screen for you. The color mix app is an app that will let you not only interact with your iPad, but it's going to change the code. Actions are going to run, outlets are going to happen, and you're going to get a lot of really fundamental Swift knowledge from building this app. And the best part, like I said before, if you're doing this with students or teachers, is they can actually build this and use it on their device, see how it works, make changes, see those changes reflected. It is a very powerful way to teach coding when you can actually hold and use the code that you're writing. It's much trickier if you're teaching this and building things in virtual simulators. So this is the app we are going to build, the color mixer. You need a couple things, like we say up here. You need a Mac with Xcode 11. So I showed you how to go to the App Store, find Xcode, download it. It's a huge app, so it may take an hour or so. Then you need to run the app and sort of install it. So make sure you do that. If you are running Xcode 10 or 9 or 8, make sure you go to the App Store and update that to the newest version you can. Number 2 is you're going to want to get the Intro to App Development book. So again, this is the book that we're following along with. You can follow along with us. You can have it open right here on your computer or your iPad and read along with us. We are going to chapter 17, and that is, again, I'll pull that up right here, and let's look at this. We are doing lesson 17. And again, the reason we skipped all the way to 17 without doing any of the first stuff is because personally, I think this is one of the most fun apps to build, and it gives you instant gratification as you're able to see your code work. So, number 3, you will also need an iPad, iPhone, iPod Touch device to test your code on. So we're going to build it on our computer. We're going to test it on our device. So you're going to want to make sure your device is connected with a cable into your laptop. That way Xcode and your device can talk to each other. All right. And then I said growth mindset, because this can be tricky. This can be frustrating. This can be overwhelming. When we first opened Xcode, there were 100 different things to click on. It can be a little much. If you're working with students, it's easy for them to get frustrated in this environment, but that's okay. We just need to make sure that we're continuing to think about this in a way that each failure is a new learning moment, right? Every time your app breaks, you're going to fix it, and you're going to learn why it broke. Every time Xcode does something weird, you're going to look up and how to fix it, and you're going to make that happen. I'm here to help. There's millions of videos and people out there who are excited to help you with this. So just make sure you're always coming into this with the idea that you're good at this, and if it feels like you're not, don't worry about it. We're going to help you through it because you're awesome, and we're going to build an app. Now, finally, number 5, when you do get Xcode, you do get the book, you're going to want to go to chapter 17. And then what we did is we just simply set up our sort of environment. So we launched Xcode, we went to our storyboard, and we told Xcode that we want to build on an iPad because that's what we're using. Again, if you have an iPhone or an iPod Touch, you would want to change that. So let's go back to this right here. Okay, so thank you very much for your time this morning. Looks like we are about at 50 minutes. So we will be back later this afternoon with part 2 of this, where we start putting our buttons and sliders and get some actual code written and get this app built. There may be a part 3. We'll see how far we get on part 2, but I like to keep these under an hour. So thank you very much for your time. Again, if you have any questions, you can go to our Twitter at TechTeachersSup, post them there. You can also post your questions or comments down here on the video itself, and we'll get to you right away and help you figure out whatever you're stuck on. So have a great morning. I will see you this afternoon. Take it easy. All right, peace. I'll see you later.